Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Gary Allen. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about a scary topic of cyber attacks and what's the latest on those and how can you protect yourself. These webinars are created for the Association of Legal Administrators. Lean Law is a approved content provider for ALA and an ALA business partner. This is an organization we really love and love to support. It's for all of those hardworking administrators who want community and want education like we're providing. We're really big fans of this organization. If you're a legal administrator and you're not yet a member of ALA, and you're interested, please type your name in the chat and we'll have someone from an appropriate chapter get in touch with you. These webinars are also great for attorneys, managing partners, and anybody who's interested in legal management topics. I think they're very transferable in that way. So thanks for joining us. This is approved for ALA credit today. I like to start these webinars just talking a little bit about my story to give this some context. So I'm a 35-year recently retired attorney, practiced in a mid-sized firm for many years. And early in my career, I suffered a lot of pain from bad business practices in law firms I worked for. In fact, 2 of them imploded while I was there. I swear it was not because of me. I was fortunate to land after the second one of those in a law firm that was really well run and really did some things extremely well. And I enjoyed both the financial and personal benefits of that over a 30-year stint at that firm. And all of that has given me a real passion to help make law firms into better businesses. Along the way, I founded Lean Law, which is a legal billing software company. So today we are joined by 2 really great resources from LimeTree Labs, which is an IT services firm. Lean Law eats the dog food with this one. This is our IT firm for our software company. But we have 2 folks today with LimeTree to help us with our cybersecurity questions. First is Bobby Lind, who is a co-founder and he's a cybersecurity expert at LimeTree. He manages, which is an IT services firm here in the Boise area where we are, and has a really practical, good approach to IT questions. Welcome to the program, Bobby.
Thank you so much. Very excited for this today.
Thank you, Bobby. And then we have Bobby's colleague, Chad Mazek with LimeTree, who is the other co-founder of LimeTree Labs. So, they wrestle with these cybersecurity problems every day. So welcome, Chad, to the program.
Glad to be here.
So what we're going to cover today are what are the biggest risks your firm faces, and we're going to talk about that in terms you understand. And as you could see from the title, we're going to have a focus on email, which is the latest hot area of cybersecurity concerns. We're going to talk about what's your game plan to be safe. I've been to too many of these where we just talk about how scary all this is and that it makes you feel defenseless. Today, the idea is that you're going to have real strategies for how you can help protect yourself against these threats. And we're going to talk about some very scary scenarios, some real cyber attacks that have succeeded in an environment not unlike a law firm, and how you can be prepared for those. To give you some context for this, all of these webinars that we do for ALA are what we call best-in-class law firm webinars. And what does that mean? So that is really what I call the $8 million difference. And it's the difference between the profit that a law partner, a single lawyer in a law firm can experience based on whether they're in an average firm or in a best-in-class firm. And this is all based on the best data we could gather from the industry. And so just really quickly, what are those differences so you can kind of ground yourself for this conversation and others? There really are three things that create a best-in-class law firm. Number one are efficient processes. And to us, this is the foundation. It's kind of the easiest thing to do in a lot of ways and the most you have most control over. And that is about mapping the workflows that you need in your firm, both to put out the work and to get paid, then to build that that software stack on industry standards. And that means for law firms, M365, and for small to mid-sized law firms, QuickBooks Online. Use those big players for the base of what you do. Add legal customization. That's what a company like Lean Law does. We create the financial workflows customized for law firms, deeply integrated into QuickBooks. And then once you have those smooth, easy to use workflows put together, make sure that you communicate those throughout your organization. The second part of a best-in-class firm is productive people. And you need to have a conversation about culture, about having a compensation system that aligns with both the incentives and the accountability that you want from people in your firm. And then, of course, succession, because who wants to work for a law firm that's going to shut down when the founder retires? And the final part of it is a strong product market fit. Now that's kind of marketing speak, but basically what it means is you need to listen to your clients for what they really want from their representation by a lawyer. And there's a process called design thinking, which is really good to take those insights you get from listening to your clients and then turning that into an offering at a price that works both for your clients and for the profitability of your law firm. Then you need to match the marketing that you need based on the type of firm you are, basically a B2B or B2C law firm, so that you can get the clients can learn about your offerings in a cost-effective way. You do those three things, you can literally triple the profit of a law firm or an individual practice, with making that $8 million difference over your career. So that's the context of today. Now we're talking really about the technology part of that, those processes, and how to keep those safe. Before we get into Bobby and Chad's presentation, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about this webinar series that we have now. This is now the last one of 2024. All of these webinars are available on our community at leanlaw.com/learn. You can join the community and see the recordings for all of the webinars we've had, everything from financial report card to compensation systems to financial disasters and how to transform the efficiency of your workflows. And they're going to continue with 2 programs a month all through 2025. And you can find out more about that here or on our community. Finally, so just to get a sense of where your firm is financially, we offer a law firm financial report card that you can sort of see how you're doing relative to those industry standards and get a sense of where your focus needs to be to improve your financial performance. So we'll send you that after the webinar. Okay, now down to the program. The enemy in your email. Let me turn it over now to Chad and Bobby to tell us all about how to keep ourselves safe from cyber attacks. So I'm going to stop sharing here and let Chad put his presentation on the board.
Okay.
Thanks, Gary. While Chad's doing that, yeah, we're just very excited to share this information. We have seen with our own eyes. Chad and I have been doing this for well over 20 years, and we've seen in the last year and even the last few months, it is a whole new world out there. This stuff is definitely their solutions and way to secure yourself, but it's definitely not to be scary, but it's definitely coming for everyone. Nobody's getting out of this without, they're hitting every organization of every size. It is, we used to see maybe one attack every quarter, kind of thing. Maybe once every 6 months, really. Now it's almost daily. I mean, it's that ramped up, but I'll pass it over to Chad.
Yeah, thank you. Is that coming through okay on the screen share?
Looks great.
All right. Yeah, as Bobby mentioned, we've been doing IT support and security for law firms for a long time. And, over time, you learn what's necessary and reasonable to keep your clients secure. We're the ones who get the call when an email is breached. But it really has been changing over the last really 18 months. With the emergence of new technologies, there's a lot of new threats, and those threats are very ramped up. And that's what we're going to be covering today, the enemy in your email. And the real focus today is email and email security. And as we go through the presentation, it'll be apparent why that's such a focus. So first, we want to talk about attack trends that we have been seeing in the industry and directly against our clients in 2024. Really, these trends started in maybe mid-2023. So really, it's kind of the last 18 months we've been seeing these changes. So in the industry, there's been an increase of about 75% in reported cyber attacks compared to 2023. And while the number of cyber attacks has been going up consistently, really since the mid-2000s, this is the biggest jump that we've ever seen, really huge increase. And in particular, when we zoom in to the legal industry, of which LimeTree Labs is very involved, we've seen these attacks increase even more because of the targeted nature of them. The other thing we're seeing is a real increase in the number of targeted, what are called spear phishing attacks. So a phishing attack, most people are familiar with, it's an email trying to trick you into doing something, giving your information, opening a malicious file. Spear phishing attacks are more targeted, though. They're not a general email. They're very specific. They contain very specific information that's much more effective at tricking you. And there's been an automation of the ability for attackers to give those targeted emails. And we'll talk about why in a moment. And then finally, we've seen a very large increase in something called session token attacks. This is something that a lot of people are not familiar with, and it used to be much less common. But what's scary about a session token attack is this is an attack that does not have anything to do with your username and password. It's an attack where by falling for a phishing email and simply opening a website, the logged in session to your email, your business email, can be stolen. There's something called a session token, and that allows the attackers to bypass your multi-factor authentication. So even if you're following best practices, you have a good unique password, you're using multi-factor, this type of attack, we're seeing it out in the wild, and it is leading to breaches of business email left and right. So one thing we'd like to know is, has your firm suffered a cyber attack, such as an email breach in the past 18 months? I think we're going to bring up a poll for that.
Yeah, I'm going to launch a poll on that right now. All right, let's see. Oh, how about that? Give this about 15 more seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Some of you are there have not answered yet, so please throw your name. We don't keep any individual answers here. So if anything has happened, okay. All right, we have the lucky ones. It looks like we are 0 for 5 on the.
Okay.
Let
Well,
me
that is great.
end the poll, and I'm gonna share the results up here. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's definitely good to hear.
Good to
Because
hear, but it's
we're
coming.
our experience in the past 18 months, um, with all the firms we support, we had gone from, as Bobby mentioned, one attack kind of getting through the first layer of defense, maybe one attack a year, to almost a dozen over the course of 2024.
Mm.
And we'll talk about, thankfully, the impact of those attacks was mitigated with some of the strategies we'll talk about later, but it's just much more common that people are getting phishing emails that are easier to fall for, and they're getting through the defenses. So we can talk about why this big surge in effective attacks, why is there such a big increase? And there really is a very clear explanation for much of this, which is AI, or generative AI. So anybody who's played around with ChatGPT or other language-based AI generative models, they can see that they're very good at taking information and writing convincing emails and messages out of that. So because of that, phishing detection systems, the things that are trying to stop these emails from getting into your inbox, they're a lot less effective at detecting AI-generated attacks. Now, some of the products in the market are now trying to add special technology to spot AI-generated content, which is great, but it's going to be a new game of cat and mouse as detections are put in place, and then new models are built to kind of get around those protections. And, effectively, if the email ends up in your inbox and it was drafted by a AI system, you're much, much more likely to fall for it. In fact, earlier this year, IBM put out a video where they actually did a kind of a trial to see if they could have some of their staff write better, more effective phishing emails than the AI systems, and the AI systems were way, way more effective at writing the phishing emails. AI also is allowing automatic drafting of things that used to require user intervention. So what I mean by that is attacks that were very effective but time consuming to launch are now automated. So when an email account is breached, the attackers can pull the information out of the email account, automatically feed it into an AI system that will now draft new phishing campaigns based off the information they just pulled. And this is leading to very targeted, very effective phishing emails.
So can you,
Yeah.
when you talk about, the kinds of things that AI does that are more effective than a human does. Give us an example. I mean, what does that email say? I mean, what kind of things do they throw in there that make it better? I mean, I understand. I use AI a lot in
Well,
my writing, and it is pretty convincing usually. But
yeah.
why has this been a category change?
Well, the third point on here is that there are now actual AI models built specifically for phishing and hacking. There's a phishing tool called Worm GPT, which is Chat GPT for hackers, and they're very effective because they are able to take contextual information across a large amount of stolen email and then put that together in a way that would be way too time consuming for hackers to do directly. So they're not just drafting an email that touches on, a piece of software you use or the bank you deal with. These systems are actually pulling all the information out of thousands of emails, and they can drop little bits of information calling back to your, months ago in this conversation or this negotiation. And so you just get these
So
very verbose emails that are touching the whole history of email communications. And
okay.
it
So
may
this starts with them breaking into your email system.
that is we'll talk about
Right.
that. Yeah, that's one of the
Okay.
most scary things it does.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it also allows these systems can also target any individual. So if I'm going to send Gary Allen a phishing email, I can scrape the web and pull all this information about Gary Allen from all over the place and compile it into a very
Mhm.
effective phishing email.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't have to even spend time doing that as a hacker. I
Yeah.
actually have automated that with the AI system.
And it's the
Yeah.
speed. It's the speed, Gary. It is. We can't even. You can't even put in your mind how fast and quick it is with these AI tools. Like, and how deep they can go. It's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yep. So this
So,
is
so what
really,
kind of details would they have about me that I would find to be compelling? I mean,
well,
assuming there has not been like a systematic breach of my Gmail account or something.
these attack frameworks, for example, could very easily figure out who is your email provider, who's your payment provider potentially,
Mhm.
who are partners that you might be listed on
Yeah.
your
Who do you do
website,
business
your
with? Yeah.
LinkedIn, people you do
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
with.
Okay. Hmm.
And then
But
they'll take it a step further too very soon here. I mean, they're already doing it, but very soon it'll be even more. They're going to know exactly how you write an email, Gary. The
Right.
AI will know exactly how you write an email.
yeah, the scary part is the broad attacks, just like in general, the broad attacks are less effective. But once they breach one mailbox, and we'll talk about a real world example here, now they've got the goods. Now they've got a lot of, like Bobby just said, a lot of your emails, Gary, right? They breach somebody's
Hmm.
mailbox that they don't breach you, but they breach somebody you've worked with. And now they have, 50, 100 emails from you, and now they're able to model you as an email sender.
But even an online profile, they can scrape it and say, "Oh, this is how you
That's
respond to things."
that's a starting point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got
Very
it.
true.
Got it.
It just was
Thank
not
you.
available in the past like that. Not, you know.
Hmm.
So here we have an example of an email that somebody might need to evaluate to see if it is real or not. This is more of a classic situation. So I think we're going to bring up a poll here and just see if
All
people
right.
honestly answer. Take a minute to look at this email and just see, do you spot something that looks suspicious to you? Is there
And
some sort of red flag?
and just the fact that it's in Chad's presentation is not enough.
That's
You
not
have.
enough. It could be trying to trick you.
All right. Okay. Let's give people a minute because this is a pretty good one, right? I mean,
It is. Yep.
I'm looking at a few things here that I mean, I'm in LinkedIn, so I get lots of LinkedIn stuff.
Mhm.
Very happy to announce. Oh, there's somebody that we got to know. Let's
Okay.
just give people about 10 more seconds to check this out. No reply. It looks like it's from a LinkedIn address, doesn't it? Subscribe. Okay.
So
Is this a real one, by the way?
this is a real phishing training email.
Real phishing training
This,
email.
this is
Okay.
a phishing training email that has a click rate of about 18%, which is pretty high for training emails that we send to our clients. This
Okay.
is an email that our clients will receive at various points from us to see if they're going to click join the conversation, which will then say, sure, log into LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, got it.
And so if you
Okay.
take a look, this is a very well crafted phishing email. But to be
Okay.
clear,
So I'm going to end
this
the
is a
poll.
standard.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
This is a standard phishing email. Emails like this have been around
Mm-hmm.
for 20 years. They do get better and better over time, but this is a phishing email. And the one tell here, you can't tell by the content of the email because this is pulled straight from the LinkedIn email template. It's going to look exactly like it. Same
Mm-hmm.
information at the bottom, right? This is going to be very targeted for people who use LinkedIn. But if you take a look in the upper left, this is a key part of our phishing training we do with people. Take a look not at the name, which says LinkedIn, but look at
Mm-hmm.
the email address, the full email address. And LinkedIn does not send from account-info.email,
So
right?
how would I know that?
Because LinkedIn sends from linkedin.com.
Ah,
That's
Got
the
it.
answer,
Okay.
right? And this is tricky. This is why people still fall for this. It's again 18% click rate on this training. It's very high. It's a high
Mhm.
click rate for a training email, but it does require vigilance. It requires vigilance to not trust that just because it looks like it's from LinkedIn and because it says no reply.linkedin in the start of
Got it.
email address, anybody can do this. Anybody can do this from a Gmail account, from a random account. It's very difficult, if not impossible, for attackers to actually use LinkedIn.com. That would mean that something is breached there, but we'll
Got it.
later. But this is really the best case scenario for a phishing email that arrives in your mailbox. The email address is not right, and you can see it. Now,
Interesting.
to be
So
clear,
I,
there are
I
secure. Yeah,
yeah, I had missed that. And I was looking at things like, why are they from Ireland? And
that's good. I
that's
mean,
so yeah, okay. So
yeah,
that's the first thing is check for a real domain in
you
the email
you
address.
check for a real
Yeah,
domain,
got it.
and the content of an email can be a warning flag if it's asking about bank information, if it's asking
Yeah,
about payment information. But the fact is that many breaches start with the breach of an email account or a LinkedIn account or something like that. And so they're always trying to get your credentials to get into whatever system. So this is an example of a very standard phishing email, one that is likely to end up in your inbox at any time. There are security programs that help. So our customers, Gary, hopefully this won't end up in your inbox because the actual system we use to send this training email, it would have actually flagged the email and given a warning. And why? Because that system is smart enough to recognize this is not where LinkedIn emails usually come from. And it's
hmm
going to give you a warning. But the tricky part is for all the different services you use, they might come from email accounts that are
right,
for something else that isn't their domain. So it's a soft check. You have to kind of make that determination for yourself and then hopefully have good support where your IT can look into it. If Gary, if you received an email you weren't sure about, you're going to be able to call us and say, hey,
right,
can you check this? And then we can look at a lot more information on the back end. But
right.
where it gets, but again, this is an example of very standard stuff that's been around 20 years. This is
Right.
the day to day.
Can I ask for a
Yeah,
couple other things on this one?
sure.
So the @Chad, is that a flag?
It could be. It could
Yeah,
be. I
okay.
mean, that's not. I don't believe my sign in name at LinkedIn is just @Chad. That could be.
Okay.
The template's not perfect. We don't really like to train on those things though, and the reason is you
Yeah.
can get phishing emails that the content of the email is perfect. It looks exactly like you would expect. I have seen emails that look exactly like a real FedEx shipping notification,
Right.
exactly like a real Microsoft notification. So unfortunately, the content can be easily duped. The other thing that we would
Hmm.
see is if you hovered your mouse over the join the conversation button, that link does not lead to LinkedIn. It leads somewhere else. So that's another thing you can check.
That was the
This,
other thing I was going to ask about.
yeah, that's a good way to
Got it.
check too. So those are the two ways you would be able to spot this: the sender email address and what does this link actually lead to?
Nice. Yeah, it's a little bit, it helps to know that you've got somebody who's testing stuff like this. And I don't know if you're going to talk about this at some point, but I remember this from our prior conversation, which is, there's phishing training and then there's phishing training, right? Because it's
Yes.
if you're doing phishing training, you want somebody who really wants to fool you, who's doing
Yes.
it.
No, you're
It's-
right. And there's insurance companies, there's all these, but you really do want a trusted partner. For example, for us, our security expert we have on staff, he gets a bonus if he gets clicks. So he's really pushing to get to
Right.
trick people. And even internally, like he's always trying to get, trick me internally too. So
Which
yeah.
is
Yeah,
what hackers are trying to do. They're trying to trick you. We have to try to trick you as well. Um,
right.
very
Well, another
standard.
thing you
Yeah.
said that really struck me, And sorry to interrupt again, which is, there was a long time where if you were like fairly diligent, you could definitely spot something.
Oh, yeah.
Like have felt pretty good about my spidey sense about these emails. But now there could be like something really subtle in the email address, and that's it. And so you really have to have that software that's, throwing up those red flags for you,
Yeah,
or
it's
you
true.
just
It's
can't
true.
do it by
And
yourself.
yeah, and they're getting so good that you, like you said, you fall for it, but also you fall for it and then you don't think about it because and so they could be in there for days doing things. You wouldn't
Right,
even know. So
right, right. Wow. Okay.
So this next example we're going to give, here we go. It's meant to be a little humorous. Do you see anything suspicious here? Well, we can't show you anything in this email because this is a real phishing email that one of our customers was hit by, and we're not hiding anything that's suspicious because nothing about this email is suspicious, and that is the scary part. This email was indistinguishable from reality. The sender's address was not the real sender, but the attacker had registered a domain name that was only one character different. You would never spot the difference, right? It was the name of the name of a law firm, and the attacker had purchased the domain of the law firm name where an E was an A instead. And nobody is going to spot that. Especially because the content of this email was all legitimate. This was an email related to a payment that needed made immediately to avoid a lawsuit or a lien or something. It was a long email chain. There was a lot of people involved in this email chain. And that document, that PDF document right there, has bank account information to wire transfer money. In this case, it was $180,000. And unfortunately, the customer fell for this. This was a law firm that was breached. They had an email breach. The person who fell for this phishing email, they weren't compromised at all. They were on the receiving end of a third party's email being breached. And this is a very sensitive topic for law firms in particular. A breach at a law firm can lead to pretty widespread consequences with all the parties involved. And in this case, it led to $180,000 fraudulent wire transfer.
So this was like a law firm bill, a fake law firm bill that got paid into a wrong account, essentially.
What it was is a law firm.
Or an escrow or something.
Yeah, it was a law firm representing one party. And they were saying this party you owe this party this much money. You need to
it was
pay
a
them.
settlement amount. Yep.
Yeah, you need to
they're
pay
paying
them
a settlement. Oh my
Yeah, they
gosh.
said if you don't want to go to
prevent
court,
litigation.
yeah, if you don't want to go to
Right.
court, pay this, but you got to pay it in 24 hours. And when they duped all this, the domain and stuff, all they did was change one letter of one person's name.
Right.
And so yeah, yep.
So
Wow.
this is meant. We want to give this as an example that everything about this email was going to lead to behavior.
And they were able to do such a great spoof of the email because they had broken into the system at some point and had access to all of this information.
That's exactly right. The law firm involved, one of the law firms involved in this whole email chain involved two businesses and two different law firms. One of the law firms involved had a business email compromise. We don't know what led to that. They're outside. That business email compromise then led to our client receiving this, what we would call spear phishing. This was an ongoing communication, and the people who breached the email, they waited till it was the last minute, right? Okay, fine, send me the payment information. And then they swooped in and said, here's the payment information. And by the way, they had used their access to put a rule into that law firm's mailbox. So that law firm got cut out of this email chain. They could not, any message they tried to send and any message they received from the parties involved was automatically removed from their mailbox. So they didn't know. You know, they had no clue.
Wow.
So very scary kind of attack. And again, this is something like Bobby was saying, very rare in the past. We're seeing more and more of it in the, in right now. And thankfully there are things you can do about it. So
Yes.
we're going to move on and
Okay.
talk about at a high level some other examples that we've seen recently. So law firm email compromise leads to $180,000 wire transfer theft. That's the one we just looked at. Another one that we came in to help a new client. They became a new client because of this and then their need for help and cleanup. Hackers breach email and lie in wait for a month, allowing them to steal a large payment from a manufacturer's biggest client. This was another six-figure theft.
Oh yeah, almost 300,000. Yep.
Yep. And in this case, what happened is the email account was compromised. Nothing was done for a month or more from the best we can tell.
No
They
good
waited.
tools, no good service or partner solutions.
Yeah, nothing was gonna notice this.
Yeah,
Mm.
nothing in place.
Once a transaction was happening where this manufacturer was ready to, they'd finished a big job for one of their biggest clients and they're ready for payment, the attackers intercepted that email communication and they got the client to send the payment, to them instead of the manufacturer. And so the manufacturer, not only did they have to deal with this breach and notifying their customer that, hey, you sent the money to the wrong place, but they're in a very sticky situation now because it wasn't their money, but now they're out this payment. They've damaged the relationship with their client. The client, the client is being told, well, maybe you should put a cybersecurity claim in. And it's a very touchy thing because these breaches don't necessarily always affect you or your firm directly. They can affect your customers, which can be in some ways even more damaging. And then
So you just raised the question of cyber insurance there. And I don't know if you were planning to talk about this later, but we've had another conversation along the lines of, you don't just, the insurance is not just going to cover this because something bad happened, because
exactly
there are
right.
a lot
You
of covenants in those
exactly right.
policies
Yep.
that say, you have to have these sort of protections in place, and you have to have, you have to kind of do everything, maybe not everything, but you have to have reasonable protections in place to even qualify for the coverage if you have a problem.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
The cybersecurity policies, they're onto it now. They know it better than anyone right now. So unless you're doing all the things, they are not going to cover and not going to help you. Even for PCI compliance, credit card processing, that kind of stuff, which is a low level of a cybersecurity policy or anything like that. Even PCI compliance right now used to be 8 to 10 pages. Chad and I would see a lot of times we would just do it for our clients just do it for them. No big deal. The last one we got was for a plumbing company, 108 pages. And it had penetration testing. It had a whole bunch of stuff in there. This is just a plumber. And if he doesn't do those things, it ain't going to cover. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And we will touch
Yeah.
on strategies. We'll talk about how cybersecurity plays into it.
So do you know if either of those two examples you just talked about, if they were able to have covered claims?
Well, go ahead, Chad. No, I was going to say that they're able to recover a little bit through the banking, but no, their policies, the second one, the one Chad just talked about, almost 300,000, they had nothing in place to cover for their policy. They didn't have tools in place. They didn't have protocol. They didn't have a provider or internal. They want to see either internal or a provider for IT. No, they didn't have any of that. And the other one, it was the same thing. There was things not followed, even training. So we have one example where we trained, it was a big org. We trained the whole org except for one person. I'm not going to say the position of that person. But that person was
The
too busy.
former position of that person, perhaps?
Well, it was the president, right? It was the president of the company. So he, he's not going anywhere. But the one person that didn't get the training, but then fell for the phishing. So your insurance is going to say, we want to see proof that you got training. Don't have it. So
Well, and the other thing is for, $180,000 payment or $300,000 payment, you can't use a credit card. So you're not going to get those protections. Their
True.
bank-to-bank
exactly
transfers
right. Yep.
have a lot less risk protection than a credit card.
Yes.
They do. We'll touch on that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And then there was another very major example of a cyber attack this year, Change Healthcare, which is they're part of a nationwide network, a healthcare network. I believe they're United Health. I think they're under United Health. They suffered the largest ever reported U.S. data breach that also was a ransomware attack. Their services were disrupted for weeks. And this actually caused a nationwide outage for pharmacy services. One of our customers who is in the pharmacy, they're in pharmacy benefits, is their kind of vertical. They were affected, and their ability to do business was actually affected by this breach. They lost a fair bit of money and business, and they could do nothing about it. They were at the whims of Change Healthcare getting this resolved. And all of that stemmed from an email account that did not have multi-factor enabled on it. And that led to a breach of another administrative account that did not have multi-factor enabled on it. So we thought we would maybe do a poll here. Does your law firm require multi-factor for all email logins?
This is a good one.
Okay.
And I would point out that sometimes businesses will enable it so you can use it, but we're talking about the requirement that you cannot get into your email without having multi-factor set up. It's a very important control.
Okay, looks like we're at 100% here.
That's great. Be very worried.
Give everybody just a few more seconds. Yeah, we do not want to see the nose on this one, really.
Yeah.
Maybe we have the wrong people listening to this webinar.
Right. If
No,
you're watching this later
good.
and you would answer no to this, address that immediately.
Yes.
Yeah, you really need this webinar.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to end the poll there and share the results so everybody can see. We had 100% on the right side of that one.
That's excellent.
Great. Yeah, and Change Healthcare, I read an article just a few weeks ago. They're estimating this will be over $1 billion in damages. And there's
Oh my gosh.
many lawsuits already. So
Goodness.
if we move on here, we can finally stop talking about how bad it is, and let's start talking about what can you do to protect your law firm from these increasing email threats. So the very first thing here, this is probably the single most important point of this entire webinar. It's important that law firms, all businesses, and even everybody personally adopt a zero trust approach to email. And what does that mean? Well, what it means is 95% of enterprise data breaches begin with a phishing email. It is by far the leading cause of breaches. Change Healthcare found out that your email not being secured properly could lead to $1 billion in damages, right? This is very, very common and the number one way attacks happen. And it's because everybody gets email all the time into their inbox and they're looking at it and they can click it and they can take action on it. And it's very difficult to prevent 100% of the time malicious emails getting into your inbox. The recent statistic is somewhere between 1% and 3% of all email that hits your email server is a phishing attack, depending on your industry. So it's all day, every day that these things are trying to get in. You just can't trust the emails you're getting. And as we saw in the other example, you can't trust them even if they come from somebody you know. If somebody you know has their email breached, then the attackers can send the email with their account, and you'll never know. You'll never know it was a phishing email if you're just trusting emails from people you know. So a zero trust approach to email means you don't do important things with only an email as your trigger for that, or the email is your only source for information. If you're going to wire $180,000 to somebody, you need to pick up the phone and grab a pen and communicate directly with the other party to get that sensitive information. If you have an employee who wants to change their payroll bank information, you do not do that because they sent you an email from their Gmail account. We had one of our customers do that. They said, no problem, employee, we got that updated. And that employee's payroll was gone because their personal email was compromised. And their
Happens
auto
all the time
deposit
now. Yep.
went to the hackers. So you just have to assume that the email you're dealing with could potentially be
Yeah.
completely
And I assume you want to verify even a phone number. You know, if
Yes.
it says call
Right.
me in the email, you shouldn't trust.
Yeah.
You shouldn't
Yeah.
trust
That's
the phone
exactly
number
right.
either, because now you're going to have AI generated voices and
That's right. And that, yeah,
crazy
that's
stuff
right.
like that.
And that's where everyone should look at today, Slack, Teams, these type of communication things that are intern or more, they're just more locked down, have more security. Email is very old and archaic. And like you just said, Gary, even phone, at some point, everyone's just going to have to be vigilant about this. There's no way around it.
Yep. Yeah. So just assume that if the information you're getting is from email, don't act on it if that's the only place you're getting that information. You need to take another great example is invoices. You don't pay an invoice because you got it by an email. You need to have a better channel. You need to have a payment portal. You need to have another avenue rather than just simply getting invoices by email or sending invoices by email, because these are ripe for fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing you can do to protect your firm is to use, it's an industry term, it's called defense in depth. What does that mean? Well, it used to be my email won't be compromised because I have a good password. Then that wasn't enough. Well, now it won't be compromised because even if they know my password, I have multi-factor. So you've added another layer of defense. But then you have to keep going with that, because now a session token hijacking attack that I mentioned earlier, it can bypass your multi-factor. So now I have another layer of defense that protects against that. And then you have to assume that even with all the layers of defense, you might still get compromised. Then you have another layer of defense that mitigates the impact of that attack. So for example, we did have a customer suffer an email business breach. Despite everything in place to prevent that, their email account was compromised. But then the suspicious activity of the email account triggered another security tool that disabled the email account and prevented the spread of the attack. That's what defense in depth is. It's no longer enough to have one thing securing you. You need many doors and many locks. And importantly, have all that implemented in a way that it doesn't get in your way of doing business. That's an important consideration. A good defense in depth strategy does not get in your way all along the way. It just protects you from more angles. Then ensuring you have sufficient cyber insurance coverage and policy compliance. That is the big one. Change Healthcare, I don't know what's going to hash out with them. I don't know what their coverage is, but I guarantee the fact that that account did not have multi-factor enabled is going to greatly impact whatever claims they're putting in, because that is a hard and fast requirement. We assist many of our law firms with renewing or changing their cybersecurity or cybersecurity insurance, or coming up to new compliance standards. Over the last 2 years, we've seen a very large increase in the standards that are required to get or maintain coverage. So this is going to be very important. This is a quickly changing area of the market where your cyber insurance coverage, you need to look at that very carefully, maybe change providers, and definitely make sure that you are following the requirements so you can actually get paid out on a claim, because we're hearing a lot of stories of people just getting denied. It's like, show me proof that this breach bypassed these security controls you said you were using. And then when you can't do that, you're in trouble.
Mm,
A great way,
that's,
though, to make sure your cybersecurity policy compliance is covered is to adopt a security framework for your law firm, such as NIST cybersecurity framework or SOC 2. There's a handful of very good security frameworks. Not only can this be great, it's great for three reasons. Number one, you're getting the improved security of following the framework. You're really learning, am I doing all the things I should be doing? Both technically on the IT side, but also procedurally and operationally, right? Making sure that you don't do insecure things when it comes to HR, payroll, payment processing, things along those lines. So that's great. You improve your organization. Another benefit is it does get you, like I said, typically into compliance with your cybersecurity requirements for your policy. And then third, it can actually open up new lines of business for you as you can deal with clients that may maybe require you to have some sort of compliance framework. We help many businesses that have SOC 2, for example, because they need it in order to get the clients, to their business.
yeah, that's my experience, that my prior firm had to do that because they worked for banks and insurance companies,
Yep, yep,
and they
exactly.
require that. So I remember I don't remember if it was 100-page form, but it was long and in a very small font.
Yes. Oh, I've been through some big spreadsheets, compliance spreadsheets.
Yes, exactly. Well,
Um,
should we I wanted to do a poll maybe on that one to see
sure.
which of our audience have worked with SOC 2 and other compliance standards. Yeah, we've got a couple no's, a few no's. Let's see what else we come up with. Give you a couple more, a little bit longer. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. We do not have anybody in the audience who's had to go through that. So that's it is a big process, but it seems burdensome, but it is, at the end of the day, it kind of gets to the things that you really need to be doing,
It really
like
does.
multi-factor.
Yes, it
Yeah.
really does. Yep.
It's true. And the last point on here on general strategies to protect your law firm, it does tie into all of this. Make IT management and support a priority. We deal with many law firms, large and small. And it's very common to start helping a law firm that in the past had very part-time IT support. Maybe they're not big enough to have anybody internally, or they use somebody maybe by the hour. But when it comes to doing all the things you need to do for defense in depth, meeting your cybersecurity insurance compliance, all the things you need to do for that, and then if you do want to get into a framework, it's invaluable to have consistent professional IT support. And that can help make all of these things so much easier because you get to offload that burden to people who do it all day, every day, repeatably, and make sure
Right.
and it also pushes some of the onus on them as well, right? Instead of you having to ask yourselves internally, do we do all of these things? You get to ask somebody else, and if they say no, then you say, well, do them. And then do them. It really does help.
Yeah. And I'm all for running a low overhead law firm, but I'll have to say that, these days, a level of IT support is necessary. The good news is that you can do it remotely if you've got, cloud-based tools in your firm,
Yes.
and that makes it much more affordable and convenient. So
Yeah.
definitely
And
it's a good thing to look at.
absolutely. And I mean, I'm cheap as they come. So, I really, when you look at your business, revenue it generates, risks, all that kind of stuff, IT support really, it's not that expensive. It just really isn't. So.
Yep, it's definitely the ounce of prevention,
Absolutely.
part
Yeah.
of your expenses.
So after talking about some of the strategies to protect against email attacks. Let's take a look at this email again. It might look familiar. Does anybody see something suspicious about this email? I think we can throw up a poll for that. This one should be easy.
Yeah, I would hope so. All right, I think our audience is getting the point there. So
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and
So-
share those results. And everybody saw something about that. It
Something.
might be a big red banner right across the top of the email.
This is an example of what a defense in-depth strategy does. This phishing email did come through. It did get to the person's inbox. And you can't block. One thing that sometimes people don't understand is it doesn't matter how much money you pay, you cannot block all phishing email because that would lock down your email to a point where you couldn't even use it. You would be blocking way too many legitimate emails. What you can do is add extra protections. So in this case, a security system that we use called Iron Scales identified something suspicious. It said, we know this sender, but the email was sent from an unfamiliar address. This is actually the email we talked about earlier, the email chain that led to a wire fraud transfer. And it's very unfortunate, but in their haste and lack of training, the person ignored this red banner. And they proceeded.
Ouch.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's right there. Yep.
They opened that attachment, they took that wire transfer information and they transferred it. So it shows that defense in depth can really help, but there's no substitution for engaging everybody within your firm, making sure it is a priority and it is taken seriously, because you can do everything in the world. And if somebody lets the bad guy in, the bad guy gets in, right? You can only do so. And also, again, it goes back to, you can't trust email inherently. You don't use email. You should not use email as a mechanism to transfer sensitive information like wire transfer, bank account numbers, or bank account changes. It's just not secure enough, regardless of how much money and effort and training you spend to secure it. So finally,
got that one.
We have a handout that will be sent out to everybody in attendance. It'll cover these points here. So you can check these off. You can see if you are fully protected for your email. This is the new fully protected. It used to be secure password and multi-factor. No, that's not fully protected. You need to have a full stack here. So number one on the list, you definitely need to have outsourced or internal professional IT help to set up and maintain these security systems. Without a doubt, the number one place we see email account compromises happen are very small firms that do not have professional IT of some sort helping them. And as Bobby said, even if you're very small, even if you're budget conscious, you can find professional IT at a reasonable price to make sure that you're taken care of and set up properly. I mean, I've seen email systems that were set up completely insecurely, where breaches happened in spite of everything because the core setup of the email system was insecure. So that's a good place to start. Of course, multi-factor needs to be enforced. And as I mentioned, enforced doesn't mean people can use it. Enforced means people have to use it or they cannot. They must use it or they can't get in. Phishing protection and reporting system. This is what we were showing earlier. A phishing protection system helps prevent as many phishing emails from getting in as possible. And you want a way for your staff to report when they do get a phishing email. We had a client receive a phishing email, fall for it, but their company was already protected, because as one user was falling for it, another employee spotted it and reported it, which caused the email to be pulled out of all the inboxes for the whole company. And it mitigated what otherwise would have been a very big attack.
Nice.
Continual employee phishing training. We went over that phishing training email earlier. Very important, so people will spot those unavoidable phishing emails. Hey, here's a LinkedIn update. Hey, you got a package. The phishing training is very effective. Our clients who have had it for years, we get to the point where, as Bobby mentioned, our security lead, he has to go way out of his way to get anybody to click, right? He has to get very creative and really dig in there because it can be very effective. And then the last four here, these are actually very new things. These are things that only in the last year, LimeTree Labs has started adding to our security stack because there are so many new ways that attackers are trying to get in. So conditional access policies, these are a technical tool to allow you to prevent a lot of invalid logins that people could be getting by going to bad websites or falling for phishing emails. Conditional access essentially will say, you're only allowed to log into your email from your office or from your home, or you're not allowed to log into it outside of the US. It'll protect against a wide range of attacks, but this does require typically a lot of additional setup and maintenance to make it work. Because when you're traveling, if your conditional access goes off and it says, hey, you're in Mexico, you can't log in, you need your IT support to be there to put an exception in for you.
Yeah, makes sense.
A secure browser policy on all computers. A secure browser policy helps protect against those session token hijacking attacks by ensuring that when you click a link and you open your browser, that browser is not going to have access to the login tokens for other sites. So there are a lot of different ways you can implement this, but you should be doing something to make sure that simply clicking on a link and going to a web page isn't going to steal the logins that are active in that browser. And then managed detection and response. This is very important. This would have probably prevented the Change Healthcare breach. I don't know too many details, but this is what we utilize to really mitigate the impact of ransomware that comes in through a phishing email. Managed detection and response is a product that is on top of antivirus. It watches for suspicious behavior, and it will actually lock down a machine to prevent the spread of problems. So if that machine starts getting ransomware or starts doing spamming emails, something like that, this system can detect it and turn it off, take its network connection down, so it can do no more harm until it's cleaned up. And then the very last one, which is, in my opinion, probably the most important new control that all law firms should be making sure they have. Identity threat detection and response is a product that looks at the email login behavior for your Microsoft 365 or your Google Apps accounts. And it is spotting suspicious behavior, things like impossible travel. You're logged in here, and then 2 minutes later, you're logged in 1,000 miles away. That's suspicious.
Didn't happen, right?
Didn't happen. The creation of email rules. So when hackers breach an account, the very first thing they typically do is make a bunch of email rules to prevent you from seeing what they're doing. All of these events can be triggered. And again, these systems can lock down the affected email until your IT support can investigate and clean it up. And we have, LimeTree Labs does use this kind of system, and it mitigated a very scary attack on one of our clients. The system saw the business email account compromised. It immediately locked down the email account before it could start doing damage. So this is kind of the new stack around email security. It seems kind of big and daunting, but again, if you're working with people who know what they're doing, this can be put in place for your business comprehensively, and make sure that you're really doing everything you can. And then if anything, if somebody somehow gets through all of this, well, you know what, your cyber policy is going to have to pay out because you did everything you could.
Right.
That's right. And we wanted this list, Gary, so that people can take this and say, hey, I want these things, and I want you to prove to me that we're doing these things. Or they can,
Exactly.
interview people to say, hey, we want to, are you going to do these things in your service? Because right now that's the most important.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and the list here doesn't include cyber insurance, but you need that.
That's true.
You got to follow all of these
That's
things.
very
so
true. Yep.
Make sure you do that. Well, we are past the hour here, but thanks for the great conversation, you guys. And thank you, everybody, for attending today. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but please feel free to submit any questions through the emails that were on the presentation. I'm going to show you one last slide here that has shows you the information you're going to get. So you'll get the slides and recording, an email security checklist that you just saw, the law firm financial report card, and the directions to become part of our free community, which has lots of resources like this at leanlaw.co/learn. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking with everybody, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.